Welcome to Slow News Day Live. My name is Steve Poikinen. I am dodging the sun here in Boulder Creek, California. Joining me on the stream this afternoon or early evening on the East Coast is Brook Hines. Brook has a consulting business called Progression Partnership, and they get progressive candidates elected at every level, right? Assist in getting progressive candidates elected at every level of government. So if you're involved in a local race and your candidate is struggling, reach out to Brooke. She also hosts a weekly internet radio show called the Progressive News Network. She's Alan Grayson's former campaign manager. She's a wealth of knowledge and information and is fascinating and brilliant, and I am stoked to have her on. So please welcome please welcome to the show, Brook Hines. Jesus, I didn't agree through that.
Hey, it is so good to be here. I love your show. Every day in the afternoon, I switch from Twitter to YouTube, which I think is probably healthy, just to get off Twitter for a while.
Right.
And so, and I see your stream come up and I'm like, oh, I'm totally watching that.
Thank you.
It happens. It just seems to happen when I'm doing my afternoon Zen thing.
Sweet. I have not been accused of being Zen before, but I appreciate that. I do. Thank you, man. I sometimes I weird out a little bit because I'm like, fuck, it really doesn't seem like, this is going anywhere, but I still managed to get incredible fucking people on the podcast to talk about really fucking important shit. And I think that's ultimately the only thing that matters. So I'm glad you're one of the people that's hanging out for this. I am. We were talking before we started rolling about the lunacy that is Joe Biden. And his campaign has been caught again, borrowing heavily from other sources without citing their sources. In any other world, that's called plagiarism. In Joe Biden's world, it's called running for president. You want to speak to that a little bit?
Well, the most recent one is he's cribbed his climate change plan from a couple of websites devoted to climate change. And I was just noticing, that's what I'm looking for. I was just noticing that the Daily Caller, which I don't make it a habit to look at Daily Caller, but someone who tweeted about this also put up some more information on this. So Business Insider has the story, and the original story, and then it looks like Daily Caller has followed up with additional information. And then you reminded me that he even cribbed his slogan from Bernie, which I knew that, and it's just so remarkable. It's just so mind blowing that I'd put it out of my head. Like I can't look there.
I saw that, and I do often remark that we live in a cartoon, but that was just perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It was like there's a thing where in copyright law you have to change something by 20%, or at least in music there's a certain amount of words or chord changes that you have to, and then it's not technically stealing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got to wonder if there's anybody on Biden's team that is like familiar with copyright infringement. It's like, oh, well, if we change the slogan just enough,
mm-hmm.
technically not stealing. Sure, it looks cynical, and sure, it seems a little desperate, but Joe Biden's running for president. Everybody's pretty cynical and desperate.
Staffers can only do so much. Even if you're a campaign manager, you can lead your horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And Joe Biden, attached to this particular story, was it this one? Wait a minute. There might have been one earlier today. It was one of the recent ones. They were talking about how he had. Oh, it was the civil rights, going to the civil rights march on Washington, and his staff had been telling him, "Stop telling that story. You never went there, so you're going to get in trouble for that." And he didn't listen. Of course, he didn't listen, and he got in trouble for it before, and now he's getting in trouble for it again. He's just, and politicians who get to a certain level and have a certain amount of power are notoriously terrible at taking advice or instructions from their staff. Right. They just won't do it.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that play out. Like I've been involved on a handful of different campaigns, and I've been an organizer before. And there's politicians that I've worked for, and politicians that I've even reached out to. Not from this show, but through other work. And yeah, there's a level with most. There's like a progression with most, to where the campaign manager is recognized as the person who really helped get them there. And it goes from that to, okay, but you're a subordinate, to, why the fuck do I need to listen to you? I'm Joe Biden, or I'm fucking Newt Gingrich, or, but you know, and at that point, you can only like watch somebody unimpressively flop their dick out on the table so many times before you're like, yeah, no, I'm out of
here. Yep. Yeah, I think Biden's got a lot of that dick flopping under his belt, so to speak, to mix metaphors. I just can't wait for the next thing. I mean, he's remarkable. He's a perpetual motion machine of mistakes, and it's so early. So we've already got all kinds of plagiarism. We've got him lying about showing up to the Civil Rights March on Washington. What's next? I mean,
well, so if you remember, they let him at a public event after he didn't go to any over Memorial Day weekend. He went to like high dollar fundraisers with union busters and fucking right wing political consultants and shit like that. But they let him go to a public event like right afterwards. And the first thing he did is like rub up on a tween-age black girl.
That's right. And he used her as a human shield between him and the press.
Her around to these reporters, like, I'm going to make you experience this awkward moment with me because it's giving me energy or some fucking weird shit, you know? Yeah. I mean, they let him out in public for a second, and he says dumb shit, and he fucking inappropriately touches kids. And if it's not a kid, he'll find someone.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
You're right. He's a fucking walking slow motion disaster film. He really is. And there's like, he comes out with his cribbed climate plan. We know that his informal climate advisor got the job after she recently just left the board at a liquid natural gas company. One that worked with the Obama administration.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, of course you're stealing your climate proposals. You're not planning on implementing any of them, A, in the first place, but B, when you can just throw that shit out there while people have at least access to the information that your climate advisor fucking ran a fracking company. Like, why that doesn't just ring as disingenuous as the fact that his hair has only grown over the last 40 years. His teeth have gotten bigger and wider over the last 40 years. Like, why it doesn't resonate as that fake? It is a testament to like the Rachel Maddow brainworms.
Yeah. Well, I think that his early bump has been all about this knee-jerk reaction that people have, that what they desire is to get rid of Trump, and their very first thing that they think is, oh, if we could just have Obama again, or someone with the most name recognition, then that'll do the trick. And it's not going to, I don't think it's going to take too much vetting or seeing what he's about for people to second guess that, for people to move away from it and think, oh my gosh, he's really kind of dangerous.
So, and you're right. I mean, you're absolutely right. That's why they don't let him out in public much, because he talks. And that's why they don't want him. That's why they didn't want him at the California Democratic Convention, because he was going to get booed every time he opened his mouth. Like, it wasn't just going to be the minute long that fucking what's his name got. They were going to tear him a new one. You know, so I understand from a campaign strategy point of view, skipping it, and largely skipping California unless you're having a private fundraiser. But it doesn't ultimately, and I think I've said that I doubt Biden will make it to a primary. And if he does, it'll only be because they need whatever portion of votes he can siphon away to make sure that there's a contested convention. But they're really trying to push Elizabeth Warren now as like both the anti-Bernie and the anti-Biden. And I've said from the beginning that she's the spoiler, she's the Judas goat this time around.
Yep.
But Biden, he can only wear Obama like a sweater for so long.
Yeah, there's not much there, and I think that it doesn't take too much reflection to understand that Obama picked Joe Biden for a handful of reasons, and the two that I've always talked about is, number one, he knew how to work legislation. So he knew how to go and take legislation and do something with it, which a lot of good that did them. And then secondly, there was the Dan Quayle effect. Joe Biden he wasn't going to get in anybody's way. He wasn't going to steal Obama's thunder. So, he was a really good choice for Obama as vice president, especially in terms of, somebody who didn't want a vice president who was going to challenge him on policy or move strategy or move the ideological side of policy. Joe Biden is just a yes man. He's like, whatever, whatever you want, I'll go and try to sell it to the Senate or sell it to Congress.
Well, and not only that, but he sold fracking nationwide or globally, along with Hillary Clinton. He sold weapons. The vice president's residence was the same revolving door for lobbyists that Mike Pence's is right now. You're right. He's a go-getter, in terms of crafting legislation that's going to benefit his paymasters, making it appear bipartisan, putting a smiling, benign, almost goofy face on the fascism that he represents. And I was somebody on Twitter today was like, man, everyone over 45 that is in favor of Joe Biden becoming the nominee for president has just got to be stupid. Like they're just fucking stupid, and that's it. And I was like, well, he has a record of protecting their personal wealth and power and their security. He represents security in that measure better than the rest of the clown car. Like that's smart. It's selfish and greedy and fucking, you're war crime adjacent at that point, and you're cool with tiered justice, and you're cool with institutional racism, and you're cool with ever expanding income equality, but he's not Donald Trump, and he'll probably support your initiative to, you know, ban plastic bags everywhere. And that's what really matters. Like, your property taxes might go down, and he'll shepherd us through whatever financial collapse that they want to blame on Trump.
Well, I think probably a Biden, just like a Trump administration, just like an Obama administration, and a Biden administration would actually put more pressure on property taxes that are assessed at the local level and collected at the local level, because we're seeing less money coming from the federal government. So in terms of that shifting of money, he's going to be way worse for it. And he's also one of these Rahm Emanuel, you know, neoliberals who are like, let's privatize as much as we possibly can. You got roads, great. Let's put toll booths up on them and make them, you have to pay to commute to work, which Florida is ate up with this stuff. It's ridiculous. When I was commuting to work, I was paying $1,200 a year in tolls only for a 13-mile, it was 13 miles from my house into work. And so I'm just driving on one toll road twice a day. And like, that's $1,300, you know, $1,300 a year is like, that's getting up there with how much you would pay as a state income tax just going to your toll roads.
Oh yeah. I honestly can't believe that the 5 in California isn't a toll road. I really can't. I was sure that Jerry Brown on his way out was going to make some kind of deal for that. If only because high-speed rail was dead in the water. Yeah, Biden's to the right of Trump, at least candidate Trump or on Twitter Trump, in terms of foreign policy. He was on par with privatization. Rahm Emanuel's another one of those. How he got, I mean, it shows you just how fucking broken on purpose the system is when Rahm Emanuel can go from the Chicago mayor's office to the Hills editorial board.
Right. Right. That's so he's on the Hills editorial board. He's also at the Atlantic, and there's another media gig that he got on too. It was just shocking. I mean, it's this weird employment program for, you know, people who had formerly been in office at a time, and you know, make no mistake, when someone like Rahm Emanuel is putting news stories out, or, you know, having his staff write a story for him that he'll approve, all that's doing is pushing propaganda, pushing the kinds of policy that is working for the lobbyists and the donor class that he's working with. That isn't about, you know, good copy or something that people want to read. It's just people scratching each other's backs.
Yeah, it's oh God, what is that? When the article is written by the company, but it as an ad, but it looks like a legitimate article. What's that called? I forget.
Advertorial.
Okay. Yeah, it's an advertorial piece with just cutting out the middleman.
Yep.
I mean, and that's 99% of fucking media anyway. It is just getting the talking points, disseminating them in a way that makes them look slightly less like talking points, and hoping that enough of the masses are distracted enough to buy your bullshit and run with it, so that if anyone ever comes at them with the truth, they can shut it down and point to all the reputable news sources that they got their information from.
Yeah, and they don't have to. So custom publishing or advertorial has to be tagged. It has to be clearly labeled as paid for content. And so when you're employing people like Rahm Emanuel, or even when you're employing people like Mueller and Comey, on television news, you're getting pure propaganda that doesn't have to be tagged as such. You don't have to call it paid programming. And people tend to view this kind of content as having more credibility instead of less, because, oh, these were big people who used to be in the military or used to be in government. And it's really the opposite.
Yeah, and when you point out that Obama legalized this form of propaganda in the National Defense Authorization Act, when he signed the reauthorization of it, and that's when you really saw this influx of military industrial complex alumni and spook alumni saturate the airwaves as paid contributors. Like trying to get somebody to make that connection is a lot harder than it should be.
Yeah.
Especially regarding Robert Mueller and James Comey and Donald Trump and William Barr and fucking and WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. You watched that 8-minute statement he gave, right?
No, what are you talking about?
Mueller's statement the other week.
Oh, right. Yes, that. I thought for a second there that Julian Assange was allowed to give an 8-minute statement. I was like, oh,
no,
where?
God, I wish. That'd be awesome. I'd stick around. Yeah, hell yeah, I'd tune in for that. Robert Mueller's statement, where he came out immediately attacking WikiLeaks and setting up the ability for the Department of Justice and Donald Trump and everybody else that was participating in this Russiagate fucking nonsense to collectively go after Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. And we've got the Saddam has WMD guy who was appointed by George W. Bush laying out the case as he steps down from special counsel to Donald Trump and William Barr. And all these people are supposed to like hate each other. That's the fucking theater of all of it. And they might dislike them as individuals, but that doesn't mean that they won't work together to pursue this agenda, the silencing this man whose only crime is exposing the crimes of empire.
Well, are you catching how Russiagate and that whole Mueller investigation vis-a-vis Barr is kind of turning around, and it's folding in on itself, so that people are starting to ask the question, how did this start? With Barr saying, I want to declassify, how all of this business started, and then that caused a big uproar, and Mueller refusing to give interviews, refusing to go in front of Congress and all of this. I think his back is against the wall, because, I mean, how you get like an intuition about something?
Oh, yeah.
And it's not exactly confirmation bias, but you kind of keep it in your head, and you're like, when are we going to see more along these lines? And it has always felt to me like from the start that this whole business with Russiagate was something that was cooked up by people within the government. Now we know from the book Shattered, that the Hillary Clinton campaign was, playing with the idea of Russia way before anybody else, way before it became a national issue. They were talking about it back at the convention, which is, you know, way before election night when it got put out there for sure. But it was even before that. And I think what we're going to find out is that Mueller was working this angle, you know, going back a little bit further. Because look at how weird this got. We'd finished the Cold War. The wall came down on Germany. Russia was not a threat to us. As a matter of fact, Bill Clinton went over during the 90s and privatized everything, and we're supposed to be best buddies. And then this comes along, and all of a sudden, Russia is supposed to be an existential threat to the United States out of nowhere, you know, except for, you know, these handful of elites who want us to believe this. And then you have all of these weird little organizations that popped up, like Prop or Not and Hamilton 68, you know, and all these guys that are affiliated with NATO and are the Atlantic Council people that work with Facebook.
Right.
They're all trying to enforce what can be said online, and the narratives that people are working with. They're trying to enforce a certain kind of narrative that makes sure that all roads lead to Russia being our greatest enemy. And that scares the fuck out of me. You know, I'm old enough. I grew up on the Space Coast. So,
Okay.
you know, growing up, there were missile tests all the time. You know, they're putting up rockets all the time. And you, as a kid, you never divorced. You know, it wasn't just like, I mean, we moved there in like 75. So the rockets that were going up, it wasn't an Apollo mission. These were all military missions, or putting up satellites, or they were testing ICBM. You know, they were testing missiles that would deliver bombs. And, you know, you grow up with these nightmares. You grow up, and you get into junior high and high school, and everybody all your classmates have that same existential fear. Like, we're not going to live to have children. We're going to actually see nuclear war. That was a given, you know. So when in the 90s all of this went away, I mean, we were just like, holy crap, this is amazing, you know. We don't have to worry about Russia anymore. We don't have to worry about, you know, having a nuclear war anymore. Let's just put all this stuff away. Yay. And for it to all be brought up again because Hillary Clinton lost a goddamn election makes me so furious. They have brought us to the brink of freaking war, and all it takes is one military guy, or two maybe, with itchy fingers, you know, to set off a huge incident that could become a shooting war, either in Syria, Venezuela, or across the Bering Strait between Russia and Alaska. There's around the Ukraine. There's so many places. Iran now. Oh my God.
I don't know if you saw or not, but Lockheed Martin put a tweet out bragging that their CEO was at the table at the state visit with Trump and Theresa May today.
Oh wow. Wow. Yeah, I bet he's happy.
Well, she.
The Lockheed CEO
CEO of Lockheed Martin is a woman.
Oh my God.
So there's your intersectional fascism. Which I'm kind of hoping that I coined. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm going to operate under that assumption until somebody points out that it's not mine or I discover it. But yeah, I do. That's what it looks like to me is, just, you know, it's always diversity for the sake of optics, never diversity never diversity of opinions. And it's a cynical right-wing party masquerading as the political center because propaganda works. So it does appear like intersectional feminism, intersectional fascism. It really does. Like, we can have all the colors of the rainbow, as long as you're sitting at the table with Donald Trump and Theresa May, making sure that the F-35 project goes forward because you're about to invade Iran, fulfilling everybody's wet dream from the 80s that is now currently in key positions of power in Donald Trump's administration.
Intersectional fascism. I love that. It totally works for me because, well, you know, there's so many organizations now, you know, from you know, lots of 501c3s, 501c4s that are devoted to this intersectionality approach to things, and they, you know, they're operating in the realm of climate change or in the realm of reproductive justice. They rarely touch economic justice. They might work on like decriminalization for marijuana, things like that. But at the end of the day, what they're looking for is what you're saying, is an intersectionality that isn't actually emancipatory. There's no model of liberation there. The model is an intersectionality that brings people to the table who, you know, who can be more cogs in that machine.
Who know their fucking role.
Mm-hmm.
Who
Yeah.
know their goddamn place and know that they're replaceable immediately and will without question obey. And yeah, dude, I can't think of anything more demeaning than like, for the optics, uplifting a person of color or a woman and have them be your mouthpiece for never-ending war, wage slavery, fucking the for-profit prisons, fucking any of that shit. Like it's just, it's mind-boggling that is looked at as a measure of success rather than the epitome of what is wrong with this fucking this capitalist system that we're currently operating in.
Tangentially, that was a lot of my problem with, I mean, I had many problems with Hillary Clinton's campaign, but her focus and everyone's focus on the glass ceiling, I thought was just tone deaf to the extreme. I mean, most of the country is worried about keeping a roof over our head and a floor under our feet. We're not worried about a glass ceiling. The only people worried about glass ceilings are Hillary Clinton's friends and Chelsea Clinton's friends and that whole bunch of people. But and you know, if there's more women who are CEOs of shitty companies, that doesn't do me any good. You know, I mean, we don't have enough security as working Americans to even entertain that's some kind of you know, Hunger Games-esque like entertainment. It's not even entertaining anymore. It's like, screw you people, I don't care.
You know what? The thing is, there's no reality TV is proof that there's no shame or humiliation millions of Americans won't turn in for, and like the slow motion death of the empire that we're living in right now, it is something that people will without a doubt watch as they expire.
Yep.
I'd like to be hopeful and think that we're an event away from enough people going, shit, that ain't working. But I don't know. Like, all of the signs of financial collapse are back again. We've got a fucking game show host in the WWE Hall of Fame as president currently. His fucking vice president is a super creepy rapture ready Ken doll who calls his wife mother. Like,
so bad.
Shit's not okay, you know, on any level. And his competition is a fucking gropey serial liar who is further to the right of him on empire expansion, fucking a million different Hillary clones, Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard, who I see no real way of them making it through the primary cleanly. But on the off chance they do, uh, the DNC is just as vested in the status quo as the GOP is. And I don't see them running a clean general election from their safe districts in that regard.
Yeah, that could definitely be a problem. I'm up for that fight though. You know, I'm up for
Yes.
seeing them, get top get get up there and be the top dog. And if they want to have a dirty convention, bring it. Let's have that fight. If that's what you're going to do, the way that you did in 2016, let's have that fight.
No, I'm for that. I want to I want to do my fucking part to like make people aware of this likelihood and encourage action, not just when it happens, but all the way leading up to it. Like, I would like to see some citizen fucking voter safety organizations form up and like mob up at polling stations.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see people do the same when it comes to the electioneering, like we saw Bill Clinton get away with over and over and over and over and over.
You're talking about when he showed up to polling places and it essentially shut them down, like during 5 o'clock when people are all trying to vote after work. Here comes Bill Clinton, and it's in a Bernie Sanders district, and all of a sudden nobody can get in and cast a ballot because Bill Clinton's there. That was bullshit.
Yeah, and then he would do like a meet and greet for another half an hour or so, and then go exactly 100 yards away, grab a megaphone, and fucking campaign for Old Hill. Because it's not technically electioneering if you're more than 100 yards away.
Well, part of my business, one of the things I do, just about everything I do, comes with a disclaimer on it. This piece of mail or this hat or whatever it is was paid for such and such committee for the election of so and so. Ads or like that. I want to know why all these sock puppets on social media. If social media, if a few $1,000s of advertising on Facebook through the election for Donald Trump, then how come we're not actually making people disclose who their sock puppets are? Because right now, social media parts of campaigns, if they're not including some form of sock puppetry, they're not competitive.
Yeah.
They're not competitive. And that's what Sally Albright's all about. She showed herself to be competitive because, before all of this kind of came out, she was able to say, okay, we're doing this social media campaign, and look at all of this traction that we got. Look at all this engagement. Well, she was getting engagement from her own bots.
Right.
And, now it's even more sophisticated than that. I think like when I forget the person's name, Liking Online was his Twitter handle. He did an analysis of all of Sally Albright's bots. I was like, well, that to me looks like what somebody would do to make it look like their marketing was more effective than it really was.
Right.
And I think we've evolved beyond that at this point. We've evolved to the point where instead of just showing better numbers, better metrics, we're actually offering those, and people want to see those sock puppets offered as a feature of social media work, so that they start to push the narrative and not just reinforce it.
Yeah, you're right. I don't remember the particular thread you're talking about. I saw some of it. This is before I was on Twitter, but I saw some of it because it was shared on all social media. Um, I think Vice even did a show where they went to a US, I think it was a US representative's bot farm, like troll farm
Oh,
or his
wow.
bot factory, and it was hundreds of iPhones linked up. And this was like a US representative with his own bot farm, not independently of whatever the DCCC or CAP or whatever David Brock had going, independent of that. Like it, it,
Mhm.
it's insane. Um, it's manufactured confusion because we already
Yeah.
done manufactured the consent.
It is liking online, and that is their handle, and it's also their at liking online. And so this guy did an amazing, it's not pinned still, I don't think. Um, but he did an amazing analysis of what Sally Albright was doing. And so, I feel like we have to we have to account for every penny that comes and goes out of a campaign. We have to account for the messages that we're putting out in media in terms of advertising and direct mail and all that sort of thing. You have to show who's paying for that and where it's coming from. Why is it that people can get away with amplifying voices blindly using sock puppets? It just shouldn't be allowed. I think that's an area where we could actually, make some noise and get some change, because it's like the technology got out in front of the regulation, and so now we have to go back, and we have to pull that back in and start regulating. Put some regulation on that, so people can't just have 1,000 sock puppets that are all saying, "Oh, Joe Biden's great," Who,
Um,
who
well,
cares if he lies?
if I remember right, Jack went to the White House and like explained to the president, yeah, you lost 600,000 followers because they were all fucking fake accounts. Like
Uh-huh.
it's something that Twitter has the ability to do, but it only has the will to do it regarding certain people when they feel like it for whatever particular narrative they're trying to help push.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see a regulated internet coming without losing net neutrality.
Yeah, I don't think we want to regulate it on the internet side. I think we have to demand disclosure on the political side, on
Uh,
the side of the campaigns and the politicians.
I mean, is that just hitting up uh not like open secrets, but however they're obtaining the receipts? Like, do you file FOIA for that? Do because you could track through expenditures how much of it is going to your bots. I don't know if, I mean, I know that on the dark web they cost money.
That's an interesting idea. There are a lot of ways to hide expenditures, and
Yeah.
one of the ways that campaigns get around it is they'll work with a PAC, and have the PAC do all the dirty work, which is what um, that's what Brock was doing, of
Right.
course.
Right.
And he touted it. He said, I'm spending $1 million on trolls to go after progressives, and that was applauded, somehow.
Because we live in a fucking cartoon. That's why.
Right.
But David Brock is, yeah, he did. They also, like, they openly bragged that they were coordinating with the Clinton campaign, and nobody slapped him on the wrist for that. There were
Nope,
zero repercussions for that. And that's
none.
like the one no-no that even fucking Mockingbird media recognizes you're not supposed to do is directly coordinate with a super PAC. And they're like, no, we get to though, because fuck you, you know, and like, yeah, it was just ignored.
Yeah. Yeah, we saw way too much of that. And uh, I think a lot of that was people were just making way for Hillary Clinton. She was to be coronated, and nobody was allowed to stand in her way. So no one was going to make a big noise. No media organization was going to, come out and say that's bad or issue any kind of normative statement about it. Hopefully that's going to be different in the future, but I don't know. We've established that it's normal at this point.
It, and it does it aids in manufacturing confusion. When people who are distracted, who only have blue checks on their social media, for their information, who think people like fucking Mr. Weeks or Malcolm Nance or fucking Jenny Rubin or Barry Weiss are knowledgeable, and
Mm-hmm.
reliable sources of information, or Matt fucking Iglesias. My God, that schmuck. Um, I don't know why I strongly dislike him more than I do most of the hack journalists out there. It's just, I think it was because when I was unfortunately like one of the cool kids on Daily Kos back in the day, like he was like Marcos's pet.
Well, so it's always the people who have the potential to tell the truth and to do good work that let you down the most when they turn into, easily bought party shills. And Matt Iglesias has done good work from time to time, but his persona, what he presents through social media, uh, it doesn't track with some of the better stuff that he's written. And he writes a lot of mediocre just crap anyway. So
Look, I am all for prodigious use of your vocabulary, but when you're using it to fill column words
uh-huh.
because all you're doing is disseminating fucking talking points, it's obvious and it rings hollow to me. And he's one of those guys that like revels in his role as a stenographer.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think
And I
that
think
gets me more than like anything.
that whole class, like graduating class, people who were bloggers that got legit gigs, like Ezra Klein and Matt Iglesias is another. There's a whole bunch, and none are coming to mind right now. But I think it's really easy for folks like that to fall into being the worst kind of sycophants because they were used to being on the outside, and so being on the inside seems like a really big perk, and they don't want to lose it. They want to hold on to it.
That's an excellent point. And I think no one is uh, more of an example of that than Marcos Meletis himself, who was like such a pissed off rebel blogger is what he was throwing out there, that all the establishment won't take me seriously and I do. And when they're finally like, okay, yeah, you've done enough, you can come on board and we'll make you official and bona fide now, that he is just he the only person I could compare him to would be Bill Maher in that regard.
Yeah, I can see that.
Where they've just thrown their hat in with the big clubs so willingly and so readily go out there and talk that bullshit like they mean it, you know, and maybe they do. I don't, you know, but holy fuck, dude, they revel in the fact that they're seen as establishment shills.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I finally made it. I'm accepted now. I can sit at the cool clubs table. Yeah. Was there ever any, did you ever hear anything about Marcos being associated with military intelligence
Oh yeah,
or
no,
CIA?
he was he was a lieutenant, I believe,